All right, you guys, we are live. Welcome to the Killer Author Club. I'm Killer Kara Rita, along with our team, Killer Heather, Killer Kimberly, and we are going to interview the killer Michele Campbell, who will be telling us all about her fabulous new legal thriller, The Intern. We have tons to talk about, so grab your cocktail, your list of questions for Michele, and sit tight. We'll see you on the flip side.
Thought you really loved me, guess I was wrong. Thought you'd never leave me, guess I was dumb. Waited like forever to be your plus one, but I guess you were done.
Hello again, everybody. We're back. So I'm Killer Kara Rita, as I just said, with founding members Killer Kimberly Bell and Heather Gudenkopf. And we're so excited to celebrate Michele's new book tonight in the Clubhouse. The Killers and I started the Killer Author Club so that readers like you can interact with some of the best suspense and thriller authors in the business. Our winter-spring lineup includes superstars like Frida McFadden, Nita Prose, B.A. Paris, Lisa Gardner, and so many more killer authors you don't want to miss. Dates, times, and all of that kind of information can be found at killerauthorclub.com. But tonight we're here with Killer Michele to talk about killing, of the fictional kind, of course. Make sure to drop your questions, and we'll get to as many as we possibly can through the night tonight. And if you're watching this on Facebook or have a Facebook account, check out our public group, Killer Author Club. And if you're a hardcore killer like we are, you'll want to join our members-only Killer Author Clubhouse, where we pick a winner each episode, and there's a lot of other benefits too. We also have a YouTube channel, and you can find us there and any other social media platform that you care to use, and we will be there spending too much time. Anyway, so now, without further ado, Kimberly, would you please officially introduce our killer guest?
I would love to. Michele Campbell is a graduate of Harvard College and Stanford Law School and a former federal prosecutor in New York City who specialized in international narcotics and gang cases. I bet she has a lot of stories for us. She is the internationally best-selling author of fast-paced psychological thrillers, including top 10 Sunday Times bestseller, It's Always the Husband. She Was the Quiet One and A Stranger on the Beach, both of which were optioned for film, and The Wife Who Knew Too Much, which Newsweek called the perfect escape. Her latest book, The Intern, is a page-turning legal thriller about a young Harvard law student who falls under the spell of a charismatic judge and is the September 2023 Book of the Month early release selection. Okay, Michele, we are going to talk a lot about the book in a minute, but for now, can you give us just a quick, little pitch about The Intern?
Well, yeah, but first, let me say I'm so excited to be here on your fabulous show. And I feel very fortunate because I know you guys do get the best authors in the business. And it's because you're just such sparkling personalities. And it's just so fun to appear with you. So first of all, thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me on your show. And yes, so The Intern is, I would call it a blend of psychological and legal thrillers. And it's about a young Harvard law student who named Madison Rivera, who is just wildly ambitious. And she gets the internship of a lifetime for a famous federal judge, a woman named Catherine Conroy, who she idolizes. But Madison has a terrible secret, which is that her younger brother, Danny, is in trouble with the law. And in fact, he's been arrested on a very serious narcotics case that is in Judge Conroy's court. And so she gets this internship without disclosing this to the judge. Then her brother accuses the judge of being corrupt, and then he goes missing. So in order to figure out what happened to her brother, she essentially has to go undercover in the judge's very dangerous and mysterious world. And it becomes this kind of cat and mouse between these two powerful female characters who don't know whether they're allies or enemies.
Loved it. And we have a lot of questions, and we're going to get to them in just a second. But for now, everybody, let's settle in for the killer cocktail of the episode. Heather?
That's right. Yes. So, Michele, you have for us tonight the Autumn Pear Sakatini. Can you tell us why you chose this drink to accompany your book?
Yes, well, I chose a Sakatini because there is a pivotal early scene between the judge and the intern in which they go out for sushi. And the intern, who is sort of overwhelmed by her luxurious surroundings, drinks way too much sake and then finds herself in a very dangerous situation when the judge sort of manipulates her into essentially posing as the judge when the judge is off on a sort of mysterious trip. So because the sake was important, and here I do have some sake, I decided to do a sakatini, which essentially is sake mixed with vermouth or some other liquor. So this, I mixed my sake. This actually is slightly different than the recipe because I didn't have pear juice. So this one is mixed with Spanish red vermouth. And I was recently in Spain and I came back with a taste for vermouth, which I probably didn't need another vice, but there you go. And so this one is actually mixed with a little cider to give it that autumn flavor. And actually the intern is set right where we are now in the week or two before Thanksgiving. And the holiday actually plays a role in the plot. So I felt like this fall cocktail was the right one. So cheers, and I'm going to have a little sip.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yes, cheers.
Cheers.
And congratulations on another amazing read.
Mhm.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yes, and this was exciting because it was a Book of the Month selection, and it was my first experience being a Book of the Month selection. And of course, it's like a very storied literary institution, and I felt very honored to be picked for that. I also got to go to New York and film their podcast, which was super fun. So
Very cool.
Fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the first thing I had in the next segment is the intern is the September 2023 Book of the Month early release selection. That's so exciting, Michelle. Congratulations.
thank
And
you.
Geneva Rose said, this is suspense at its finest, sharply written and masterfully plotted. The Intern is an addictive, cinematic, page-turning thriller, further cementing Michele Campbell as a top voice in the genre. And The Intern had me hooked from page one. It's deftly plotted, fast-moving thriller featuring two brainy, badass women I was rooting for immediately. I know, I love that about it because really, when you're reading legal thrillers, this is an aside, but, you know, like traditionally it's been like guys. I mean, I just love this,
Yeah.
you know, I love that. Anyway, that was not in this blurb.
No, but that's actually so right. I mean, I actually started in the business writing legal thrillers under a different name like years ago.
Oh, wow.
And right after when I had little kids and I had to leave the U.S. Attorney's Office, I know so many women who started writing because of that work-motherhood conflict, you know, and it's like, okay, what can I do from home? So that was me, and I was writing legal thrillers, and I always like loved Grisham and Thoreau, but they were really like testosterone, you know,
Yes.
and having that that strong female character as a lead was really important to me. Also, just blending it with the psychological thriller that we all love to write. And, you know, I've written quite a few domestic suspense / psych thrillers. And I feel like this is kind of a blend of that with a legal thriller because it really is about the personal relationships involved. It's not, even though there's a courthouse setting, it's not a courtroom book. So it's really kind of gets behind the crime, just the way we all love to in our psychological thrillers. And I know that's how you all write as well.
Right. And the whole class-driven, which Robert Degoni said, real class-driven, suspenseful. So it's got part John Grisham, part Lisa Gardner, character-driven suspense that kept me up reading far too late. So I think that's really interesting that you kind of merged these genres together and created something new and fresh. So congratulations on that. And before we go a step further, it's time for the killer question. So, Michelle, we need to know, why do you kill?
Well, I guess the reason that I write crime is because I had a whole career prosecuting crime. And going back even further, my father actually worked in a maximum security prison. So I've sort of like had he was the director of education, like running the industrial program in Somers, Connecticut, in the maximum security prison. And so ever since my childhood, basically, I've kind of been aware of, the reality of crime. And it was always there under the surface of suburban life. And I always found it fascinating. So that's why I write killers, because they're real.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it happens all around us all the time. Yeah.
All the time. Yeah. And that's the other thing. I had a question in here for you. The difference between law and justice, and kind of and you play with that in the intern. If you could speak about that for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one, because it sort of gets to the sort of narrative gap between the conventions of fiction and the reality of criminal investigations and prosecutions. And, there's plenty of corruption. But I also think there's probably more corruption in books than there is in the reality of law enforcement. I mean, because without corrupt cops, we wouldn't have like great stories, right? So I have been asked, because of this book, are judges corrupt? And the answer is a few are, of course. But most of them really are not. So the whole issue of the corruption in the intern, it's just a really fun speculative story. And certainly in Boston, in reality, as we know, there have been mob influenced FBI agents and prosecutors and judges. Certainly they're not the majority. They're not even that large a group, but they do exist, and they're really exciting to write about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Love it.
So when you were writing Catherine and Madison, did you have a favorite that you were rooting for along the way, or how did you come about creating them? First of all, did one woman pop into your mind first, or how did that come about?
Well, so Madison is more of an alter ego to me, and she's one of a series of characters who are kind of more autobiographical that I've written over time, whether it's Jenny Vega and It's Always the Husband, or Melanie Vargas in my original thriller series back in 2005 was when the first one of those came out. So Madison was easy, and she probably came first, but I knew that the judge was going to be a great character. And as I worked on it, she was the one who I just really loved writing, because her backstory really is the mystery. And it's like peeling back all those layers of the onion. And you know how it is when you kind of get a character under your skin, and you just really kind of love thinking about them. And I really had that feeling for her. And that's why I think even though she's a very mysterious character, she does have a real emotional center, and Madison is very compelled by her. I think that the thing that's interesting in this book is you take these two women who on the surface seem really different, but in fact they have so much in common, and actually really came from very similar backgrounds, which they only discover over the course of the book unfolding as their relationship develops. But those commonalities really end up playing a role in what happens between them. They're sort of difficult childhoods, they're damaged mothers who were really absent, sort of leaving them at the mercy of other forces in their lives. And the compromises and difficult choices that they face are really similar for the two characters, but we don't realize that until it's further along.
And with the character of Catherine, we do get a delve into her past, because you have a whole thread of back in time, and it was so fascinating to be able to see where she came from and what her motivations were. And as a reader, having the benefit of that little sneak peek into her past was really, really fun. How did you decide on that past for her? Where did that come from?
Wow, that's a great question. It's kind of like, and I'm sure you all experience this, but as an author, when it's really working, it's sort of just like taking dictation from the muse, and
Love it when that happens.
yeah. And I mean, she's the sort of character who, as I got to know her, I mean, I knew I wanted her to be rooted in Irish Catholic Boston, because, having spent time in law enforcement, there really are so many people from that particular demographic in federal law enforcement, at least, and also in the city of Boston. I mean, there's a line in the book about Boston being an Irish city, and I do think that that's still true to this day. It's a very important subgroup in Boston, even as the city changes and becomes more diverse than it used to be. So I knew that I needed her to be rooted in that segment that was in law enforcement. And as I kind of just got to know her, it just became clearer. And in terms of the there's a lot of great real estate in my books, as I know there is in some of yours as well. So obviously the fabulous townhouse that Catherine lives in now during the present day in the plot, on Commonwealth Avenue. But there was also this like beach shack in Gloucester, and that was based on a house that a college friend of mine had in her family going back years. And it was truly just like a shack, like literally there was a big gap in the bottom between the door and the threshold, and just mismatched dishes, but it was right on the beach. And so I've always wanted to write that house. And so like finding her background, it just kind of all came together naturally in a very natural way.
That's a gift from the writing gods when that happens. Like seriously, usually you have to work a lot harder for a character. So Facebook user, and sorry that it doesn't say your name, is the intern inspired by some true stories that were around you in your legal career?
So not inspired by my particular career, but if I had to say kind of, the sort of whole Whitey Bulger thing and the corruption around that. And then in terms of fictional inspiration, The Departed, the idea of kind of corruption and kind of like almost like a deep cover spy, like planting someone and nurturing them over a period of years till they get into a position of power. I've always wanted to write about that because I do feel like that when that's happened occasionally and rarely, and it's really dangerous, just as like spies are really dangerous when they're kind of deep into an organization. And I've always found that sort of fascinating to write about. So that was the inspiration.
And here's another question from Katie. What project are you working on now? If you're allowed?
So I am working on more of a genre bender at the moment. It's part thriller, part fantasy, and maybe a little sci-fi and historical. So we'll see where that goes, but I'm excited about it because that's what I'm also loving reading these days, is things that are a little bit on the edge of genres. And as we talked about, The Intern being sort of part legal thriller, part psychological suspense, I do think that it can be daunting to branch out, but it can also be really exciting and get you something that, stands out in the marketplace, frankly, a little bit more, right? Because I do sometimes feel like I don't want to write the same thing that I've written before. We always want to grow, right?
Right. Okay, so this is me asking as author to author, how do you get that through to your editor? I mean, how do you get the okay for that? Because I've tried and they're like, no, you need to stay in your lane.
So I guess the honest answer to that is I've decided not to worry about that.
You just write it and then see where it falls.
Yep. I mean, I've been wanting to do that for a long time. And it's just kind of like, look, I mean, we all get so many shots at this. And this is The Intern's my 9th novel. And it's also like my 3rd career.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, there are things that I want to write that, I don't know, I'm just going to have to take that risk or else never write the book that I want to write. So we'll see what happens.
And, you know, I know so many author friends who have done that, you know, like just written the book of their, you know, heart, I guess. And it always is like this giant big book. So, you know, there's something to be said for it. I think editors are sometimes a little hesitant to let us do that. But I think, you know, when you're writing the book that you really love, the story that you really love, and the book that you really want to write, it can pay off in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, The Intern in itself is sort of a departure.
Yeah.
And did require some like massaging to get there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So and has done well. So I don't know. I think we all get to the point where we have to decide what matters in the career, and how much do we want to keep doing the same thing and getting the same result, or do something different, you know?
Right.
Yeah, that's really brave too. I want to say, because being confident enough to step into your power and do what you really want, that's a hard thing for anybody. So congratulations for doing that.
Well, thanks. We'll see what happens.
I know.
Who knows, right? Who knows?
You're doing it.
Back here with another thriller that's or not. But I do really feel like, look, I've been doing this for a long time. And, you know, it's kind of like, I really feel like you have to ultimately make it mean something to you. And some people just like love exactly writing the same book over and over, but I've never been like that. I wrote a series and I found it really constraining. So, you know, I think there's a lot of people who do love the familiarity of that. And but that's I find it kind of constraining. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'll report back.
I love it. So Katie asked, do you read the same genre that you write in? And you were just talking about like this genre mishmash of, what was it, sci-fi?
So first of all, I do read a ton of thrillers and I love them. So I'm not at all suggesting that I don't love to read thrillers. I read, you know, a huge number of books, as I'm sure you all do. And so I read many, many thrillers as part of my work. I read to give quotes to other authors. I read to sort of see what's going on in the genre. But I also love to read outside my genre. And lately, I've been loving things that are kind of that genre bending, call it a mishmash or whatever. But I just finished reading, Let's see, what is this book called? The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young, which just came out. And it was actually a book of the month. It is sort of, it's a thriller / romance / fantasy / like a little bit of, it has time travel in it. And it has a murder, and it has a very intense love affair. And so it's been compared to Addie LaRue.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you guys read that book. I haven't read that one. So I loved that. What else have I read recently? I read Lauren Groff's latest book, which is about a young woman who flees Jamestown Colony into the wilderness. And it was just absolutely surreal and amazing. I mean, that's literary fiction and historical fiction. So yeah, I've been reading all sorts of stuff, and it's exciting. You know, it gets back, like, your true love of reading that you had as a child was all about discovery and new horizons. And so I do love to read across genres, and that is part of what is inspiring me to write something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Great.
Love it.
All right, Kimberly.
I think it is time
Yes.
for the giveaway. So Michelle is giving away 4 copies of the Intern tonight. 4, y'all. All you have to do to enter is answer this question about our guest, and we will choose a winner from all the correct answers. Bonus points for joining the Killer Author Clubhouse on Facebook or subscribing to our YouTube channel. So the question is, Michelle had a job doing what in New York City? What could it be? What could it be? Put your answer in the comments, and we will come back tomorrow around this time and choose a winner.
Yes. And yeah, four winners. And so, yes, the Killers love independent booksellers, and we support them in all the different ways that we can. And that's why we've partnered with bookshop.org and have our very own Killer Author Club store there on their website. So come check us out. You can find the books that we've featured over the last couple of years, as well as some fun lists. So make sure you take a look at that. And we know that, Michelle, that you chose one of your favorite indies. We have the Norwich bookstore. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you chose Norwich?
Well, that actually is so. Norwich, Vermont, and Hanover, New Hampshire are like twin little towns. They actually share a school district. And so Norwich is right across the river. And it's where I've done a bunch of events. And I just did a really fun event there with Sarah Stewart Taylor, who is an author friend of mine locally and writes wonderful mysteries. And it's just in a little white clapboard house in a sweet little Vermont town. And it's a great little bookstore.
Wonderful. So we will make sure to put the link to Norwich. Done. It's in there. And so everybody can run and click on that link and purchase Michelle's book from the Norwich. So, so congratulations on another great read, Michelle. And I think we have something special coming up here, don't we, Kara?
We have CAC Celebrates. Killer Author Club celebrates.
We do.
And should I go now? Okay, there we go. We have a scary graphic. Okay, so there we go. Cue the scary graphic. As much as we'd love to invite every amazing killer author to be featured on our shows, there are so many, and we only have 3 of us, and we like to sleep and see our families. But we can't, and our dogs. Sorry about the dogs. We can't let this evening go by without celebrating a very special release, Johnny Be Good by Keisha C. Willie, out now. Johnny be good. That's what his mother always told him. Johnny's all grown up now, but he's still being good. He's so good that he's almost invisible, which is a very good thing indeed for a hunter. Scary. Okay, none of the women he meets realizes there's another not so good side to Johnny until it's too late. Okay, I'm like scared already. Then he meets Samantha. She sees him for what he is, turning his world upside down. The fact that he has a penchant for slicing and dicing young women doesn't seem to bother her at all. Why should it? She has just killed her date. Now that they have each other, what else is there for them to do but take a road trip? Okay, so we have 3 copies up for giveaway of Johnny Be Good. So if you would like to win a copy, it sounds really scary, so you have to be tough. Drop a comment in the post and say, I would love to read Johnny Be Good, and we will have a pick from those comments. Thanks, guys.
Love it. Okay, so membership has its privileges. Every episode, we choose a name from the Killer Author Club Clubhouse hat to win a piece of swag. We have t-shirts, mugs, candles, totes, hats, all of which can be found at killerauthorclub.com. Tonight's winner is Carrie Calic. Am I saying that right? I hope so. If not, I'm very sorry. But we will make it good with a piece of swag if you send your address to one of the killers, and we will take care of it on our end. Congrats.
Yes. And I think we've come to that time in the show where we bestow upon our guest a very special award. So, Michelle, you have survived the Killer Author Club. So you
Yeah.
can take this little badge and hang it on your wall with all
I
your.
love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't too tough, guys. There were a few questions where I was like, but you guys went pretty easy on me, I feel. So thank you. It was so fun.
You did
we're so
great.
glad
It was
you're here.
so much fun, and congratulations on another amazing read.
Yeah. And we
Thank
can't wait to have
you.
you back for your next genre bending novel. How's that? There we go. All right, you guys. And that does it for tonight's episode. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and thanks, Michele, for being here. We are back in 2 weeks with the one, the only fabulous Jennifer McMahon. She'll be joining us right here in the Killer Author Club on November 28th, I think. Yeah, at 9 p.m. to talk about her new book, My Darling Girl, and to give away some copies. For times, full schedule, past episodes, recipes, and merch, surf to thekillerauthorclub.com. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. Have a great night.
I guess I'm a killer, threw our love into the river. Heard you saying I'm the worst thing swaying.